Thank you, Nancy, President Nancy. Thank you so much. And thank you, Paul Adamo, for inviting me here to campus, and for Kathy Meeker for putting on such a great program. I'm really, truly humbled to be here today, be invited back to campus and be able to talk to students and faculty and visit some classes and just be part of this extraordinary event. I mean, we never had anything like this when I was here in the 1970s. It's a spectacular gathering of ideas and inventiveness and creation. I'm a little overwhelmed, actually, by the power and ingenuity of the students here at Oneonta State. You are fantastic. Give yourselves a round of applause. You know, there are 5 or 6 students from Mass Comm sitting in the front 2 rows right here. I gave them all my business card, and I just told Paul I would hire all of them now. They're all going to be on ESPN sometime soon. And, you know, the truth is you couldn't say that back in 1977. We didn't have such an extraordinary program and the infrastructure. And the students that are involved in this should be congratulated. You're all terrific. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, and I couldn't be more sincere, and I'm going to make good on my promise. You know, the title of this speech is From Woney to ESPN. You can't make this stuff up. It's a story that starts with a bus trip from New York City, and the ending, obviously, has yet to be written. So let me tell you where I am right now. I'm still in the middle of this story. Final chapter's unwritten, and here's the latest. You ready? A few days ago, my oldest daughter, Zoe, was admitted to the Washington, D.C. Bar Association. She's the first attorney in the Paolantonio family since my grandfather Nicholas came here in 1920. Another gift from Oneonta State. Thank you very much. That doesn't happen if I don't get on a bus and come up here many years ago. Just doesn't. I have 3 daughters. Of course, they all decided to go to the most expensive schools on the Eastern Seaboard. My entire education cost me $6,700, which is basically a back-to-school trip at Bed Bath & Beyond these days. You know, I first discovered what a duvet cover was when my daughter sent us out looking for a purple one that would match her roommates. I didn't have a duvet cover in Phippy in 1974, I can guarantee you that. You know, as I was trying to prepare what to say here, you know, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an astronaut. And you've had some great people come out of this school. Great people in great professions who have done great things. And you've probably heard from all of them right here on this stage. I'm just a reporter who happened to wind up on TV. My accomplishments pale in comparison to all of those people, all of them who stood before you here. I'm just a kid from Long Island, got on a Greyhound bus, landed in this foreign territory they call Oneonta, checked into Phippy Hall. 20 years later, voila, I'm on national TV talking about sports to 120 million households. So I had no money when I got here. I mean, none, not a single dime in my pocket. So it obviously took a lot of help for me to get from Phippy to ESPN. A lot of people on this magnificent hilltop helped me along the way. And that's the beauty of this college. It really is. It's always been its greatness. The people, the professors, the dorm directors, the RAs, the student advisors. In Phippy, you know it as Hobart Hall. We knew it as Phippy in the 70s. There were 2 professors, Jim and Kay Capo, who lived there. They were resident faculty advisors. And Jim and I would spend all hours of the day and night talking about Watergate and the Vietnam War and all that kind of stuff and the rebellions on campus and Chick Corea and Bruce Springsteen and everything. And, he was just a terrific mentor to me very early on. And he said, you should go into broadcasting. You have a strong voice, you have strong opinions. You should try radio. Why don't you go over to Morris Hall and sign up to go on WONY. So I went to the first meeting, and there was a room full of girls, and I was like, yeah, I'm for this. This is good. Sign me up. I had a show on Friday nights called Critics' Choice, and I did some news, I did some sports. But mostly I just like to hang around the station with the other students and be creative and do some cool stuff. It was interesting. I did some jazz, some fusion, rock. I soon found out that I had dedicated listeners, and one of them was my freshman English professor, a guy named Steve Rubin. He and his wife, Gail, they love jazz. And Steve was the advisor to the State Times. So one day after class, he encouraged me to start going into the newspaper. And I went down to the newspaper staff, and I joined up. And I looked around the room, and I said, there's a room full of girls here. I think I'll join this one, too. But no, from the beginning, it was just, you could just tell the creative juices were flowing, and you wanted to be part of it at all times. And that was the great part of this place. It was the intimacy of and the closeness of the student body and how well they worked with the faculty and how much of that it was such a powerful catalyst at a time when so much was going on in the world. Watergate had just happened. Nixon had just resigned. Woodward and Bernstein were heroes to everybody who wanted to question authority, and we wanted to question authority. And the professors said, go out and question authority. And it was great. And I wrote about campus politics, campus sports, wrote a sports column. And the mayor of Oneonta at the time was James Lettuce. And a big controversy on campus at the time was substandard housing off campus. Sound familiar? And he agreed to come and do an interview with me on WONY about it. We called the office, and he came up to campus, and it was the first time that a sitting mayor of Oneonta came on campus and did a live interview with a student on WONY. And it was pretty powerful, and I owe Mayor Lettuce a lot, God rest his soul. When I drove in off I-88, I drove in on the James F. Lettuce Highway to get to campus. He kind of put me on the map, because the next day the Oneonta Daily Star wrote about it, and then everybody started paying attention to what I was doing. And it was, it's cool. You kind of feeling, wow, you're part of something, and you make a difference. You get the government to react to what's going on campus. And Mayor Lettuce was reelected 3 times after being elected in 1970, and you could see why. He was a very gregarious, outgoing guy who cared a lot about what was happening on this campus. And I said, you know what? If the mayor cares, I should care a lot. So I didn't know at the time, but I was getting involved in cross-platform journalism, which is something they teach at J schools now all over the country. Here I was on the radio and in the newspaper, and it caused a pretty big stir on campus, as you might imagine. So, of course, I was indebted for life to Steve Rubin, and he encouraged me to take a class with another professor named Paul Italia. Now, if Steve Rubin was cool, Paul Italia was intense. He was fire. He infused me with a power of thinking about the written word as a way to get across my ideas and my creativity. We talked about Gatsby and De Niro and Lennon and McCartney. And he said to me something that I wrote down in my journal that I dug out before I came up here, because I wanted to see what Paul, yes, I'm that much of a geek. I still have what my professors told me written down somewhere. Remember that, guys. You can use it later on in life. He said to me, and I say this to my students at St. Joseph's University in my classes, the analytical mind, no matter how educated or intellectual, can truly comprehend or account for the creative mind. There's no accounting for the mind that can create Nick Carraway or Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. You know, I'm a 7th round pick. I said this to a lot of the classes yesterday. We're all 7th round picks out here, okay? You know, we're not at Harvard. We're not at Columbia. We got to work harder, about 40 times harder than everybody else. As I said, and you guys, I think, heard it, and I think it resonated with you, it's something that I think about every day. Sleep is optional. So is breakfast. Lunch is necessary. And dinner only if somebody else is buying. You got to work 40 times harder to get from there to here because of the way the world works. But what also will help you now is knowing, and I see it out here, is that if you do something different, dare to be bold and creative and innovative in any line of work that you're in, it will help you now more than it has ever helped you. Because never in human history has it been a better time to be a content provider. This is the legacy of Steve Jobs. The whole world is looking down at their iPhone and their iPad. How many times do you bump into somebody looking down at their iPhone or their iPad or into their laptop? What are people looking for? They're looking for content, something new. They're looking for, where's Evan? They're looking for stuff, Evan, right? They're looking for stuff to read, to excite them, to motivate them as a catalyst for their own life. Provide it for them. The whole world is looking down. You look up. You be the ones looking up. Look up for the new ideas out there. Look up and be creative. Be observant in the world and figure out what needs to be done differently or what's going on that is a change in the status quo that you can provide to all those people looking for content. Be a content provider. And I'm looking at some of these great creative ideas and presentations in the back of the room. I can't even pronounce half this stuff. I took one science, full disclosure, I took one science class while I was here. It was chemistry. I got a C because a professor was nice to me. Seismometer, construction and principles of operation, interacting with hologram using Kinect. But here's my fifth. This is the best one. Fat replacement in ice cream. Now listen, if you can replace the fat in ice cream, I'm signing up. I'm an investor. There's a lot of baby boomers out there who want to eat ice cream and not get fat. So Kimberly, Carrie Ann, Alexandra, and Amy, I don't know if you're out there, but congratulations to you. Great idea. You know, Paul Italia, my professor in English, he told me, you know, the human story needs storytellers. The court jester and the journalist have the same role in society. Tell truth to power without fear of retribution. And in order to do that, you need to be creative in the world. And these are powerful concepts. And I learned them here at Oneonta State. But they're not the most important ones I learned. I learned two more: leadership and love. I loved college life, but even with the job of flipping pancakes in the dining hall on Saturday and Sunday morning, I was running out of money. So I went to the FIPPE meeting for RA applicants, and that's where I met Phil and Carol Preston, the dorm directors at Holbert Hall. They were a husband and wife team, obviously, and Phil picked me to be an RA, and I became an RA on the 4th floor, a sophomore in charge of about 80 guys in triples. Yep. And I quickly learned something from Phil that's the essence of leadership that I also wrote down in my journal and I dug up when I came here. He said, Sal, ability is important, but reliability is critical. So this was my life at Oneonta. I had a weekly show on Woney. I had a weekly column in the State Times. I worked in the dining hall on Saturday and Sunday morning. I was a full-time RA in FIPI. I took an overload of credits, and I graduated in 3 years. I was driven to succeed by the people here. I'm still driven to succeed by the people here. Mostly, I didn't want to disappoint them. And my next stop after graduation was to get a full fellowship at NYU. And I didn't really want to start work right away. I didn't really feel like I was qualified to take the pulse of anything. And I joined the United States Navy. I became a division officer on a couple of ships in the Indian Ocean and Pacific Oceans. And what Phil Preston told me, I remembered about reliability being critical. And I spent 5 years traveling around the world. And then it was time to be a reporter, and I got a job at the Albany Times-Union, Philadelphia Inquirer, ESPN, and I've written about politics in New York, Philadelphia, the famine in Africa, 2 presidential campaigns. I covered City Hall in 2 big cities. I've covered 20 Super Bowls, Wimbledon, the U.S. Open, all the major court cases involving NFL players. I have a privilege of being on TV. I'm the guy on TV. It talks about America's #1 sport, America's #1 sports network. That doesn't happen if I don't take a bus up to Oneonta. It's pretty cool. But that's not even the best part of this story. Not the best part. Best part happens in August 1976. All the RAs are lined up on the hill, waiting for the incoming class. Move them in. I saw this redhead, green 2-door Maverick pull up with a trunk full of books. I said to my buddy Hawkeye, I got that one. Her name was Lynn McGraw. We just celebrated our 33rd anniversary. So thank you for that, Oneonta. Thank you very much.